Emily, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you are the producer for Hexes and Vexes, and that entails a lot of things. But for anyone who hasn't heard of you before, where do we start? What is Hexes and Vexes?
Yeah, great question. I informally introduce myself as like the producer, GM, and chief executive thirstmaster of Hexes and Vexes. Hexes and Vexes is truly just a passion project. It takes everything I love about TTRPG, both Dungeons and Dragons and one-page RPGs, and does it in a way that is just the closest thing you can get to watching people sit around a table and have fun, but from around different corners of Australia and the world. On top of that, a bunch of like cheesy one-off content like Thirsty Thursdays, which is just a tier ranking system of how hot is this fandom character on a scale of S to D tier. We kind of do a bunch of random stuff and also exploring one-page TTRPGs that people might not know as much about.
Awesome. I'm going to pick your brain on all of that stuff, especially the one-page RPGs, because that's something I personally love as well. I think it's one of the most creative spaces in tabletop gaming in general. But let's go back to the beginning of this story for you. I want to know your origin story. How did you find yourself getting into the world of tabletop games?
It's a super embarrassing story, to be quite honest with you.
Perfect.
I have a pretty long history in the events industry. And aeons ago, I was working for a comic convention in Australia, which specialized in things like comics and movies and television. And one of those things that was really starting to emerge was tabletop roleplay, so Dungeons and Dragons specifically. I was guest managing one year for these two guests that I had no idea who they were. And everyone was just freaking out and fangirling about them. And I wanted to know more about this world of Dungeons and Dragons, as I would find out years later. It was Travis Willingham and Laura Bailey. And I had no clue who they were. In kind of my exploration into understanding that world, I got dragged into playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons around a table with a bunch of work colleagues, which turned into then streaming Dungeons and Dragons with a bunch of work colleagues, and then turned into me producing Fate's Grip, the previous podcast that I was a part of, or actual play that I was a part of, and now on to Hexes and Vexes, which has been a journey.
So you're part of one actual play, Fate's Grip, and then you eventually transition into Hexes and Vexes. So what's the reason that you wanted to have your own channel, basically?
Fate's Grip was such an incredible journey for me. Understanding TTRPG and Dungeons and Dragons and how to encapsulate the personality of an entire character was a really interesting process for me. On top of then meeting all of these incredible people in the community that really got behind me as a producer and supported me, and also the players of Fate's Grip. The transitional period there, last year, just before PAX, I had been running my first campaign, Echoes of Divinity, for a little while, and it felt like it needed its own home and that it was kind of ready to grow and foster itself. I sat down with the players from Fate's Grip and they were super supportive about it, and it ended up as Hexes and Vexes, which came from just the sheer joy of like messing with my players, but also passionately adoring all of them. So that's kind of how it found its own home, on top of me really wanting to support the one-page TTRPG community and try out different systems. I wanted a space to do that I could wholeheartedly produce and tailor to how I envisioned it in my brain.
So tell us a little bit about the campaign, Echoes of Divinity. What's it all about?
Yeah, it's basically, it's a homebrew. It is completely homebrew, straight out of my brain, which has been a feat in itself. And basically we step into a world that is recovering post-calamity. It is trying to understand how the calamity happened because there is nothing on record about its downfall. Magic has since been outlawed in a lot of places in this world. The players have been brought into this world from different corners and different belief systems, one even coming from the Feywild, to really just be thrown together as these misfit ragtag adventurers that got cocky really early and took on a quest line from the handmaiden to the queen, who, spoiler alert, has just betrayed them and absolutely thrown them under the bus for so many crimes. But it is really about understanding the world, where they fit in it, and whether they are important enough to help stop it from the cycle repeating itself. Are the gods going to play a part in ending this world like they did the first time? Or can they stop the cycle from just endlessly repeating?
Wow, some mysteries to be unraveled there. That sounds very exciting. Tell us about your players and their characters.
I love my players more than anything in the entire world. They are truly just like family to me. I have Promethean, who there is a 0 in it, has been my best friend now for, gosh, years. He is playing Valenda, who he describes as the sluttiest rogue in Demata. Basically, drow assassin that is totally just, do you know who my father is, combined with I hate my family and everything about them.
Wow.
Wonderful. We have Salt Queen Plays, who is playing an Eladrin druid who has come from the Feywild, does not understand the mortal plane and mortal issues, and has some sort of a spirit that speaks to her in her mind. We have Talera79, who plays Scarlet, aka Cherry, an underground human with celestial blood running within her veins. Fighter, she just fights for money, but has a really wealthy Bridgerton-style family. We have D20, who plays Marcus Atticus Drody, a human bard that really breaks the charisma boundaries for bards in general, is quite fumbling and awkward, but tries to be charming and is just really interested in telling cool stories and writing them down. And last and certainly not least, we have a brand new player, Lockie from Mimic's Den, who is playing Hikari Zai, a monk who believes in balance and how that all comes into play in the universe, which is a really cool group of people, but all so creative and so different and truly so flirty with each other.
There's one thing I really wanted to touch on, looking through your content, and I might be jumping the gun a little bit here because we'll talk about Thirsty Thursdays and stuff like that very soon.
Excellent.
But I've noticed there seems to be like a through line with your content, and it seems to be like your friendship between yourself and Promethean, with a 0, of course. So the two of you just seem like absolute kindred spirits whenever I chime in and check out your content. So how did the two of you cross each other's paths? How far does this story go back?
Oh my gosh. It is a really weird story because basically, during Jasper's Game Week, the Australian edition, the very first year, my GM was running a game, the first game for Jasper's Game Week Australia, and Promethean was asked to play within it. We all watched this happen as our GM streamed. We were like sitting on a couch being little chat gremlins the entire time. And one thing that we did really early when we started Fate's Grip was we started doing giveaways and really wanted to engage our audience as much as we could. Promethean won, I think, the first giveaway we ever did, and had to start talking. Had to. I think we ended up then deciding to play games together. We started a stream called Scream Team Sundays where we would play horror games. And I think that just developed into, oh, I'm going to run a thing, you're going to run a thing, should we play in each other's stuff? And it really developed from there. It was just, we had really great friendship dynamic chemistry that seems to work and has developed into a who can bully each other more in truly the most respectful way.
It's yeah, no, you can tell from watching any of the content that the two of you doing that you're very close friends, and it really shines through in the content, and it's really just there's a fun dynamic there to check out. So if anyone hasn't checked out any of Hexes and Vexes streams with Promethean there as well, with a zero, you should definitely come in and check it out because it's very fun. Speaking of that fun that you are having though, Thirsty Thursdays.
Good
So
gosh.
let's pitch it to normal people. What do normal people
Yeah,
think of
because
this?
I'm not. It was a concept I had a really long time ago, and basically the concept was I am obsessed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and have been since I was really young. And I was doing a rewatch and I was like, there are so many hot characters in this show. Like, genuinely so many hot characters. I had this thought process about, like, if I was to rank them in hotness, would that be a thing that I could do? And also, would it be entertaining? And it was one of those things where it's like, it could be entertaining. And then I found out Promethean and one of our other friends, NVCDM, had also watched the show and had opinions on it. And I was like, look, I want to do this for me. Let's try streaming it. Let's do it on a Thursday. I'll call it Thirsty Thursdays. And we did it. It was one of my highest performing streams at the time. And we rank very subjectively on the characters, not the actors, not the people behind the thing. It's very much like let's look at this character, let's look at Buffy, how hot is she on a scale of S tier to D tier. And we've done everything from Buffy to Doctor Who, we've done The Last of Us, and most recently we did the Twilight series after a really big binge watch of every single Twilight movie, which definitely was a lot of fun.
It's very fun to watch, and the point that you're touching on there is like not necessarily about just like the physical attractiveness of the actors, because the one I watched was called like Hear Me Out, and you were like reviewing like I don't know if you remember, I was in the chat, I was arguing for the blue chat bubble to make it up to S tier. It felt like just me and you, the only iPhone users in the chat that day.
Yes.
But yeah, like you obviously go far and wide with these topics. So what even was that one all about? Because it was chaotic and fun.
It was at the height of the Hear Me Out cake trend that was going around on TikTok. And we had done a Hear Me Out cake at my real life workplace. And I had an argument for a really long time about, this is going to make me sound so cooked. We had a really long argument in our office about two of my choices, the magic carpet from Aladdin and also Captain Feathersword from the Wiggles.
From the Wiggles?
Yeah, hear me out. First of all, his name's Captain Feathersword. And so it became this debate, and I was like, I wonder how this would go in a Thirsty Thursdays capacity. And so I messaged Promethean and NBC because they are my safe, unhinged people. And I was like, let's do Hear Me Out. And I remember getting all the photos through from everyone and just being like, this is really, really gonna be strange. But it's gonna be fun. And I think we had things that like the space between Jesus and someone else's hand in a painting. We had the blue chat bubble. We had the time cone. We had the concept of time. There was a lot of different strange things that popped up in there that were a lot of fun to debate about. Blue chat bubble needs redemption is all I will say.
Justice for blue chat bubble, that's for sure.
Correct.
And then touching on one-page RPGs. So for anyone who doesn't know what a one-page RPG is, it's pretty self-explanatory. But what is a one-page RPG, and do you have an example of one that you like?
It's basically a system that is designed to be able to be picked up, read through, and run without the need for excessive prep, that you can just kind of, have a couple of drinks with mates, sit around, roll some dice, and have fun with all of the things you like about things like Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, etc., but without the effort necessarily. There are a lot that I love. My favorite of all time currently, because it changes, is Dead Channel, which is a Grant Howitt one-page TTRPG. basically designed to be VHS horror. So very like Scream-esque slasher, 1980s, 1990s style. And you roll for everything. You roll for the players' goals throughout the session. You roll for the setting, the monster's weakness, and the plot twist. We've run this 2 years now on Hexes and Vexes and Fate's Grip around Halloween. And we've done Dead Channel 1992, and then we've done Dead Channel 2002 for the first time on DVD, which has been a lot of fun and really, really chaotic, but in a way that is not like, oh, look at all these chaos gremlins just being silly. It's like, it tells such a poignant narrative story without all of the backstory and prep. It really relies on just improv, which I love.
Grant Howard is really the king of this, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can see behind me, blurred. There's Eat the Reich right there. That's a Grant Howard special. But his Patreon is just filled with different one-page RPGs. Like, I think he's just might be one of the best like writers in general in the space.
Sure.
Like, have you played Honey Heist?
I haven't, but it's on my list. So I have a list of one-page RPGs that I would really like to run. I've actually just cast for one that's going to be coming out in the next couple of months called Sad Vampire Boyfriend, which is going to be a ton of fun. But yeah, that Honey Heist. I think there is like the Everyone is Seagulls one as well that looks really fun. So yeah, my aim is to run a one-pager every couple of months, either as a one-shot or a mini-series, because we all know that one-shots rarely end up being so.
Yes. In Honey Heist, there's a specific bit of writing that I always come back to, because in that game you have two stats. You have bear and criminal, and you roll bear for anything a bear could do and criminal for anything else, basically.
Love it.
And every time you succeed on a bear roll or a criminal roll, your stat increases by 1. Your bear or criminal stat increases by 1. And if you pass a certain threshold, then if you pass a certain threshold as a criminal, then you get enticed into a life of crime and you leave the party behind and they have to deal without you for the rest of the session. But if you go above bear, and the threshold in bear, and I think this is just the most incredible writing. This is a quote as burned into my mind. He says, "You freak out bear style," and then animal protection arrives. It's locked into my mind. So yeah, I'm very keen to play that one. There's another one called Kenku Bin Wizards that I really want to try as well. Yeah, the first line of that one.
Awesome.
Yeah, the first line of that one is, "You are a Kenku, a grotty little bin man," is what it says at the start. It's just like, that's all I need to know. Like, I don't need to know anything else to play that thing.
I think the first one I played was Maze Rats, and Maze Rats is like a ton of fun because it basically allows you get a name for a spell, and it's the name of it, and you can decide whatever it does. And you can just literally decide in the moment. And I remember I did a charity game with D8 Dungeon, an Irish podcast, and I had been given something that sounded like crystallizing amber. So when it got to the BBEG fight, I just crystallized the villain in amber, like a bug, and it ended the game immediately. It was a lot of fun.
Perfect. So to finish things up, I always have some recurring questions that I ask everybody. So we'll jump into those now. So question 1, take me back to your first ever character in a tabletop game. Who were they?
Oh no. My first ever character's name was definitely a generated name. It was Raven Faupassé. And she was a changeling gunslinger that was definitely a part of a cult that used to murder people and take over their lives for literal power. It was a challenging first character. She ended up dying, so yay me.
Then next question, what is your most controversial tabletop games opinion?
Okay, I don't know how controversial this is, but I think my take is D&D is the skeleton for whatever you make your system. So you are using D&D as a reference point to create whatever you want. That's basically rule of cool and enforcing rules harder than maybe the rule book does as well. You are just really morphing this thing that already exists into what you want it to be. And I think everyone should do that. I think rule of cool and sticking to the rules meshes together into some sort of hybrid that you create. D&D is just there to guide you.
Yeah, homebrew the rules as well as the world is what you're saying by the sounds of things.
Yeah, but also enforce the rules as hard as you want or break them as hard as you want. There's no right or wrong. You're telling a collaborative story.
And then final question. When you think back to your time spent around the table playing tabletop games over the years, do you have a favorite story or a favorite memory?
Gosh, so many. And I think that's what's lucky about being graced with such wonderful players. I think my favorite thing that I like to do is bamboozle my players, and not in a surprise, here's the plot twist way, in a let me drop in a random guest that you didn't know was showing up to the session. Let me film a flashback scene with you that we will air during the next actual play episode. That has been a really fun thing that we've experimented with. I've had the joy of having people like Erin from Let's Roll for Dragons and Rin_Vixen jump in as villains and also companions and absolutely break my players' hearts. And I love doing that. I love surprising them both pleasantly and emotionally destroying them.
Yeah, I saw some clips of Rin showing up. You might have just broke a few spines in addition to hearts in that scene. My gosh, that was brutal.
Yeah, it was pretty tough, and we are still dealing with the fallout of that. So it's been incredible.
Wow, something else to check out if you haven't seen it. But Em, thank you for joining me on the show today. If there is anyone who's interested in finding out more, where can they follow along on your journey?
You can find me everywhere at Hexes and Vexes, and if not, popping up anywhere that will have me. Meeples and Dragons, the Lawrites. I'm in a bunch of different places, just absolutely finding ways to weasel my way into the TTRPG community.
Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.